Good morning. Welcome to BCB Live. A lot of stuff going on Drive Safe Day. We can start overseas, but we had some major accidents here in 30. Did you see that last night?
Yeah, I didn't see all of the details on that going out on 30, but I think it was in Rowlett, and I think it involved a big rig.
It did involve a big rig. It involved a fatality. Highway was shut down until about 11, 12 o'clock last night. Happened at 6 o'clock. Again, if you're part of BCB Live, if you're out there and you're driving right now, you're looking, you're a customer, you're in a car, what we preach here is for you to be safe, to throw away, focus on what you're doing right now, those distractions, that cell phone. Let me tell you something. It can wait, and we want it to wait. We want you to make a difference out there on the highway. Drive safe, Dave. Some crazy stuff as well going on over in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you look at the tragedy that's happening right there. It is all reminiscent of a pullout in Saigon in '75. I'll tell you right now, the historians are laying down quickly what they believe to be the cause, the effect, the reasons, but it doesn't do any good. But as you look back and you see the vacuum of government created in this region, and I'm not sure. Truly, Rick, I can't even fathom right now exactly why and how this has played out over the last few months. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and we saw the Kabul being taken over. I think the only thing not yet taken over is that airport.
Yeah, right? There's 2,500 troops right now.
What was
secured.
That chaos last night though at that airport? I've never seen anything like that in my life going on at that airport.
Yeah, panic, pandemonium. They had troops stationed out there to secure the airport. All of these people rushed it, pushed their way through. Several were killed while trying. I do know that the U.S. forces fired upon a few people, and several were killed not only during the takeoff. The video is tragic, but also several were killed in a small airstrike right there next to the airport.
Yeah, some of the big issues that are going on right now are the door-to-door searches and the people wondering, how am I going to even get to the airport? Am I going to have to pay the Taliban, or how do I get to the airport to get out of here? Those are some issues that are real right now. Hey, drive safe. Also over in Haiti, man, just some devastating earthquake. And then last night they get pummeled again by some rain, 10.1 inches of rain. Just bad stuff going on over there.
Yeah, I think 1,300 were killed right off the bat. They're not even sure. There's a lot still missing.
Yeah, the death count now is at 1,419, actually. So 1,419, 6,900 folks injured, and over 37,000 buildings have been destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, there are regions where people don't even have homes or shelter from the storms that are taking place right there. I think that's Grace, right? That's pounding them and making it really difficult for them to endure. Can you imagine being stuck out in a hurricane with no shelter?
Yeah, I can't imagine. And what they need right now is some grace. They need grace. Thank goodness it was a depression. It could have been worse, believe it or not. But thank goodness, that they didn't get pummeled with a major hurricane.
High winds.
High winds. Hey, drive safe. I've never, actually I have been involved in an earthquake. So I woke up to, and I was told there was one. But have you ever really been involved in a major earthquake at all?
I don't know if it was major. I was in a bowling alley in L.A., and I got all the pins were falling over. I wasn't sure.
You're like, heck yeah!
All the pins, and then somebody yells earthquake, and then you realize that you're in one. It wasn't big. It wasn't like a 7.2, but it was a minor earthquake in Los Angeles. I think I was 16 years old or something like that. But I was standing there, and all the pins started shaking, wobbling, and they started falling over, and I was like, what's going on? And then I heard somebody yell earthquake. But yeah,
Producer, you got any earthquake stories?
I do not. I'll be honest with you. I have never been in an earthquake before. I have woken up to be told that there was an earthquake, but I've never felt one personally. Luckily, actually, I should say, just because it hits places like this, and it's a travesty. And I don't want to be around something whenever it is as bad as it is right there.
So you talk about the Richter scale, and you talk about earthquakes, and they said a 7.2. And just so everybody understands, when you go from a 6.3 to a 6.4, that's 10 times the magnitude. So can you imagine if you go from a 6.4 to a 6.5, that's 10 times the magnitude of that. So when you get all the way up to 7.2, you're talking about the ground heaving. You're talking about barely able to stand. You're talking about it's like liquid sand. I mean, that's how bad it is when you look at the Richter scale. And when you get up to those 7s, I mean, you're talking about things.
And what was the one in California during the World Series? Wasn't that
That's 6.8, I believe. I think it was 6.8.
It just tore that place up, the bridge. Just an amazing
The
thing.
freeways collapsed.
Oh, yeah. No,
all the freeways. All the freeways fell and collapsed on top of one another. They didn't have freeways for a while.
We had, nothing like this, but we just had the mudslides off 70, right? That shut that highway down. I-70 gets shut down. It is partially open. I don't know if you saw that or not. Hey, but listen to this, Drive Safe Dave. 440 loads of mud and debris had been carried off over that weekend, that first weekend. 440 truckloads of mud and debris at 13 tons each. That is just hard for me to fathom. That's 11,400,000 pounds of mud and debris getting hauled off from a mudslide.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's the mountain. I mean, you're moving mountains, and they're not done. I mean, they just basically cleared enough so that you could have single lane traffic moving through. And I think that I read that the congestion is still massive. I mean, if you're going to be moving through that area, you're looking at massive slowdowns going through there, and
that whole area is open. One lane each way going. So some massive shutdowns going on through there. So, if you're going that way, make sure you get ready for that, right? You prepare for a slowdown right there. If you can, we're going to still say go above 80, go to your destination. If you're going, that side of California, I guess, or.
Yeah, if you're going to be heading west, or east, you need to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. The delays are massive, and I'm not even sure how long they are. They didn't actually say, but single lane traffic running through there. I think they said something like 2,200 loads, 2,200 trucks pass through there. What was that, every day in that lane, in that deal? So that's a lot of truck traffic going through there.
No, it is. It's and you get to California. That's if you're in Colorado, if you're going through that area, that's how you're going to get there, right? Hey, we talked yesterday, and I thought it was interesting. We talked yesterday about autonomous vehicles. We had some drivers get on there and hop on as well as we spoke about that. But one of the major concerns was this, Drive Safe Dave, was what happens to the big truck, right? The big truck, when we're running down the highway, there's been an accident. We're using flares, we're using hand signals, to go that way, go that way. What happens to that? And amazingly enough, you have Tesla. Tesla right now sends out an alert last night. Can you show that picture too, Dave? This is pretty amazing, the cause of these accidents that Tesla's having right now. When the National Transportation Safety Board goes back and looks, it says that it's identified 11 crashes since 2018 in which Teslas on autopilot or traffic-aware cruise control have hit vehicles at scenes where first responders have used flashing lights, flares, illuminated arrow boards, or cones warning of hazards.
Yeah,
Isn't that exactly what we talked about yesterday? Exactly some of the concerns that were expressed yesterday. Hey, what happens when it's not so normal anymore?
Right.
When that highway is shut down for whatever reason, because of a mudslide, because of a flood, flash flood. What happened? How do these vehicles register that, read that the human eye sees and reacts to?
Yeah, and also even something so simple as verbal instruction. How do you give the computer verbal instruction by the police officer or any first responder? Hey, I need you to back up and move out of the way. How do you do that on a verbal instruction? How do you do that to an autonomous vehicle and make those things happen?
Well, which is why the NHTSA right now is investigating Tesla. This is the first time that the U.S. has formally opened an investigation over its autopilot system. So this is just a sign of how hard these things are going to start getting cracked down, I think, over the next few years. Because this is really, it started all the way back in 2016, where some of these first crashes that were being reported. And now, all the way up to 2020, we've had, I believe, upwards of 31 crashes involving partially automated driver systems as of starting in June 2016. And of those, 25 involved the Tesla autopilots, and 10 deaths were reported in just those 25. We're going to see a lot of these come to an apex, and we're going to see some pretty, I think, heavy jurisdiction come down on the autopilot
There has to be
systems.
some oversight. We don't really have an oversight, right?
But let's face it, at the end of the day, the only reason these were reported was that they were in accidents. Another vehicle was involved. What we heard yesterday is they don't have to share that data with anybody. So the stuff that they find out on their own, that becomes internal information that they use to maybe fix or definitely not share with the government. So there's things, that you and I just don't know about.
Yeah, we're talking, and we're not talking about small amounts of money on keeping things secret, right? We're talking about billions of dollars, and it's maybe just to them, oh well, it's a computer glitch or whatever. We'll get it fixed, but that computer glitch transcends to safety, right? It transcends into what's going on out there, and there's still a lot of questions. But I do believe that we do need to have some oversight, right? We need to have some administration.
Let's face it. We're talking about life and death. We're talking about safety. When it comes to the BCBs of trucking, the be safe, communicating if you can, be on time. We're not just trying to huddle that and not share that. We want the whole world to know.
Wow.
We want you to know about the BCBs because it has to do with protecting life. Sometimes data such as this needs to be shared so other folks can learn from it as well.
Yeah, and there may have been a workaround with one of these other upstart computer tech companies that have figured out how to do that. Why that kind of stuff probably needs to be shared. And when it comes to safety, shouldn't we share the safety data? I mean, shouldn't we share the safety information? I'm not talking about the other stuff that we do. I'm talking about the safety data.
I'm right with you. When it comes to safety, let me tell you something. It is all of our jobs. It's your job as a four-wheeler. It's your job as a shipper receiver. It's your job in the office, in safety, in hiring, in HR. And yes, it is your job as a trucker to make sure that you are the safest one out there and to help out others. If you see somebody struggling, drive safe, Dave, you don't just point and laugh at them.
No, negative. You get out and help. You do what you can. I mean, that's what we are. We're our family. We are an industry, and we have to do everything that we can to try to benefit, help the industry. And if you see somebody out there trying to back up in a really tight spot, if you try to see somebody moving into a dock in a really tight spot, do the next best thing. Set your brake, make sure your truck's secure, and walk over and help.
If you see somebody entering in the big guy right here, say, no, do not enter, baby. Do not enter.
Yeah.
It's all about safety here at BCB Live. We are the safest station in the nation. Hey, speaking of safety, drive safe, Dave.
Come on.
Let's hop into Berlin.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm not sure how this trans took place, but the nurse seems to have switched saline solution with the vaccine.
I think she dropped it is what the official reason is. She dropped it and she tried, because she was also posting some things again, but she dropped it supposedly, and she tried to hide the fact that she dropped a vial full of that Pfizer and replaced it with a good old saline, which probably, let's face it, had the same effect.
No,
you know what? Here's my question, Drive Safe Dave.
No.
How many people, producer, here we go, how many people still called in sick to work the next day and said, oh man, that reaction, it got me.
I'm sure that people probably still called in, but let's not spread misinformation here.
Yeah,
It does. The shot does actually work. Let's not.
Has proven to be effective in the control and the spread of COVID-19.
One else has, though, as well. Hey, that mask wearing is important.
It is.
Washing your hands is still so vitally important. We've got to make sure that we are continuing to wash our hands all the time. If you're out there at a truck stop, if you're at a shipper, again, this goes to everybody. It is so daggum important, Drive Safe, to keep your hands washed. And I've seen it relaxed. I've seen it relaxed inside of offices, especially. We have got to make sure that we're keeping our hands clean.
Yeah, and I do want to say in regards to this too, that it is still a very real thing. Yesterday it was announced that one of our former drivers, Brian Baldwin, and his family had suffered. He passed yesterday due to COVID. But we want to say special prayer to him and his family that they get through this. If ever you're here at BCB, you're always family. And it matters what happens to you, and it matters what happens to everybody out there. So a small prayer to him and to his family of what they're going through and their loss at this time.
Hey, why don't you do a quick prayer, and then we'll go to that freight and review.
Dear Heavenly Father, we gather before you today with all and ask for all of your grace. We ask that you especially comfort Brian and his family. We ask that you reach out to them and give them what they need today, the love that they need and the blessings that they need too. Father, we also ask that you take and you make safe all that you with this company and everybody out there. Please keep them safe. Please keep them protected. Father, we ask all these things in your name. Amen. All right.
All right, and I am back here at BCB Live's Freight and Review. Hey, we're just going to hop in real quick. We're going to look at the outbound freight. Listen, it's still very high, and it seems like Sir Rick says this all the time, like we can just go back and hit replay because it continues to stay very high. Volumes at 15,755 in totality. Look, this is back in last year in August when the freight started hitting its peak. And you can see it's really never slowed down. We're going on a year of a lot of freight going on. I do want you, however, to look at this right here. We're going to look at the ocean shipments. Ocean shipments are also important because that's freight that's coming outside of what we're shipping out here in the States, right? These are coming inside the ports, creating more freight, more truckloads to be shipped out via rail. A lot of local freight, let's face it. And then a lot of freight that they're having to transload into warehouses to get moved out. We look at the Ocean Shipment Index. This blue right here is this year. This is last year right here. Over a 35% increase year over year in total volume coming inside. A lot of freight. I mean, look at that. We're almost at 245 as opposed to 175 during the same period last year, okay? Freight continues to go. We see 220.8 on the ocean TEU volumes. Ocean containers continue to just come inside here. We have record years. You know, it really is. It's record freight coming in right now inside this country. You know, the only folks that I think we're going to see a decline on, and I'm curious what happens today as Home Depot and Walmart, right? Big shippers as they report their earnings. You know what? Home Depot, I struggle to see how they're going to beat last year's freight. That was just crazy. Everybody was building. Everybody was spending their money at Home Depot, buying lumber, buying everything to fix their house. What happens to them going forward? A lot of this country right now, freight's going crazy, especially compared to last year. For folks like that, I don't think it's going to be the same kind of year-over-year improvement that they had. We'll see here in just a little bit as the market opens in about an hour and a half.
I was out on the highway, just loving my job, feeling blessed with the presence of Buckle Up Bob. After this run, I'll get home to the ones that I love. Drive safe, Dave, he's got the passion to get the job done. Spreading the news and sharing their views, solid as brick. Here comes Sir Rick. You've been safety struck. Oh yeah. Thank you, sir. All right.
You know, does anybody else think that Music Man Mike's just going to give Leroy a big old fat kiss?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he's trying to sign a unplugged record deal,
I didn't know if he was serenading him, if he was trying out for unplugged or what was going on. Hey, we did have a question come in from somebody asking, hey, first of all, explain EDI and explain how these numbers measure up. How do we know they're accurate numbers? EDI, just so we know, is the electronic data interface. That's the shipment count that comes over electronically to dry van and reefer carriers and even a few flatbedders. Let's just face it, they're starting to catch up on the technology side. When we talk about these numbers that I show, okay, we are measuring that data only. And it's very consistent. We're taking it from the CASs, all of these freight payment center places. We measure all of their data. We have access. I say we Hey, that's the folks at Sonar. That's their value to of collecting that data. So they take all of the data that's being shipped out and they're measuring how much of that freight goes out, hits BCB transport, and BCB transport rejects. When we reject a shipment via Klein Schmidt, all of that data is recorded. They know that we rejected it and it went to the second person and they rejected it, therefore creating a spot load. They also can measure the short haul, the mid haul, the long haul freight. So much data in there is measured. And the beauty is this right here is that, most of the people are already shipping on the EDI. That's why I only really talk about van and reefer. That flatbedders, it's just a lot of still hand bills are going out on that. But when you talk about BCB transport, just for example, the BCB transport, when they get freight into their system, they get about 90% of that freight electronically. So we can measure, and all that freight is measured electronically from the same people, the same shippers, the same receivers, and you're just taking a big grouping of the major shippers and applying that to freight across the country. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and
it's a good sampling. How about that?
It is a good sampling, and just like they do a small sampling, whether they take a poll or whether they do any other type of analysis, you take a small set, a small grouping, or what have you, and this is actually a very big and large data grouping, so it's very representative of how the market is being applied to today.
Yeah, you know what? And when we talk about safety and data, let me tell you something. Data is all over the place right now. There is so much data in this country. And I think the big struggle is, what do you do with it all? What do you do with all this data that we have? When you look at trucking companies, they have this data that says a driver has had 8 hard brakes in the last month. Well, does that talk to accidents? Does that mean that this driver needs to be addressed a little bit harder than somebody else? The same person that has 8 hard brakes and stability controls, it's also, in my mind, it's speaking to the safety of that person. It's data. The struggle is, how do you take all of that data and help you make a better decision, a consistent decision? How do you take all of that data and just give you an answer, as opposed to everybody trying to look at all the data? It's cumbersome. When we look at the data that you saw on on the freightways, on the freight and review, that's a lot of data coming in, and what we're looking at is just show me the answer. Just show me how much freight was shipped out. But we can also go into it, and to you, that whoever, I think that's Brian Winsour that asked that question, we can go in and look at Dallas. How much freight was shipped in, out of, how many rejections were rejected inside of Dallas, into Dallas. It's absolutely amazing to see the trends that go on in this industry.
And I think the key word right there was trends. I think that's how you gather and make value decisions, because you monitor the trends, right? Knowing where the market is right at this moment, knowing what's going on right now is okay. It's good to know, but which way is it headed? Is it headed up? Is it headed down? Just like you do out there in the truck. Are you slowing down? Are you accelerating? That's kind of what the market trends is allowing, and that's what you're measuring, right? Is genuinely trends.
Yeah, and we can take those trends when we talk about our streaks that are going on right now.
Right.
Where are we at for accidents, with DOT accidents?
91
and 6.
That's 91 right. 91
so
and 6.
If you think about it right now, at 6 days of get out and look, we've gone 6 days as in totality without backing into somebody. Those stats aren't the greatest right now, right? We want that to be 40, because the higher that number is, the less chance, the less probability of a major backing accident occurring. Right. When we go in 6 days, and when you don't get out and look, let me tell you, you are taking a chance on killing somebody.
Absolutely.
You're taking a chance. And when we're at 6 days of getting out and looking, and when the last 5, 6 have stopped because we didn't get out and look, we are just taking those chances on killing somebody. When do you start doing it? When you kill somebody, then you're going to start getting out and looking?
No, that's not the idea. That's not the. You don't start wearing your seatbelt after you're dead. It doesn't do any good, and you've got to make sure that you do the safety things first.
But the stats. So now we're going to use the data.
Right.
The data probably points into, and I'm curious, of the 6 folks that didn't get out and look, Well, are these the same 6 folks that were riding on somebody? Are these the same 6 folks that had a lot of, just say maybe mean on the phone? Are these the same 6 people that don't idle? Are these the same, or that idle all the time? Are these the same 6 people that have stability controls? Are they the same 6 people that don't turn in transfers? I don't know that answer, but that's what data does. It makes you point all the stuff out, and it gives you maybe a report card that says, hey, you may want to look at this person right here because statistically, the trend says something bad's getting ready to happen. Why? Well, because it's happened every other time.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of the times we look at videos and we've been doing it a lot lately, and we've been doing it for several years now. Aren't there moments, Sir Rick, aren't there times when you genuinely feel, I think something's bad fixing to happen? Don't you get those?
You know it, and you know that because the trends, right?
Right,
because
exactly.
you're starting to see film and footage of trucks riding on people. And if you remember, it was about 1.5 years ago, we were on a trend line of, for whatever reason, riding on people, not just tailgating, but going into them. And just like that, we had like three rear ends in a row.
Right.
That's not the BCBs, but it was a trend line that just showed bad things were going to happen. During that same period, Drive Safe, we also had some jackknives.
We did.
We had folks running off the road. There was a bad trend line. Data is critical, and that's where, my job is to make sure that we as BCB Live, we get that data and try to help you, the driver, make better. It's not data to get you fired. It's not data to tell you you suck. That's not what the data is. The data is used to learn from. The data, Drive Safe Dave, is used to improve upon yourself.
Yeah, and it gives us a chance to focus on where we need to focus, right? It gives us a chance to spotlight that area of genuine concern by everybody involved so that we, as a group, can fix it collectively, that we can go in and work on it, whether it be by the individual or by the group or by everyone involved. We have an obvious way to see it spotlighted, right? It's on the show. It is right there in front of us.
But
Why
guess
can't
what?
we do
But
it?
guess what, Drive Safe Dave? If you say, you know what, it is time I start getting out and looking. Today, hallelujah.
I'm good with it.
I'm going to start getting out and looking. If you don't do it, it doesn't matter.
Right. But if you do it today, if you start today and you do it every day from here on out, we've made a victory, right?
Well, let me tell you something. If we do that as a company,
Yes.
if we do that as an industry, if we do that in our lives, if we practice what we say, we will be the safest industry in this country.
Absolutely.
The safest industry. We want to make sure we're doing our parts on these highways. And that's all of us.
Right.
If you're
100%.
in this industry, you owe it to the truck drivers, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to everybody on that road to protect their life.
Yeah, and be safe. I mean, the idea behind all of this, everything that we talk about, everything that we come to you about, every single bit of information that we try to provide here is to help you make great decisions out there to be safe. Look, we want you to be passionate about it. I'm safe.
It's scary though, right?
Right, I'm safe.
It can be scary sometimes. Being safe, doing the right thing, Drive Safe Dave. It can be scary, but you've got to face your fears, my brother. You've got to look the fear in the eye, and you got to march down that road with intent to be safe, Drive Safe Dave.
And be excited about it and have fun with it, right? We want it to be fun. We want it to be exciting. And we want you to enjoy it more than anything out there by doing the things that you love to do out there in the industry.
It's got to be fun. Let me tell you something.
Look, he's got a do-rag on
There
today.
is nothing more fun to me than being safe. That is the
Did you
funnest
come-
thing ever.
you come
Hey,
down
Rick,
to
what
Harley?
did you do this weekend? Man, I was safe. That's what I talk about. Hey, what did you do? I wore my do-rag. I walked out in my shirt, and everybody saw me. I was so safe this weekend. That's what it's all about. It's exciting. It's invigorating.
Yeah,
You know what? I feel a little like Hulk Hogan right now, too. with
You're
do-rag on.
going to tear it open.
That's not happening. No,
You're going to rip it open this morning and do the Hulk Hogan. Ah!
Hey, it is time. And speaking of fun, well, we have a lot of fun with the phrase that pays, don't we?
We do, and we give away a lot of money.
We give away money, and we want it to be fun for them, too. Drive safe. Read it to them, baby.
Situational awareness is always key to keep the road safe for you and me.
One more time.
Situational awareness is always key to keep the road safe for you and me.
Hi, welcome. We have Sam here. He is one of our wonderful planners, and we're going to do a rapid fire. Are you ready?
Yes.
So you know what it is?
No.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's roll.
What would you eat a day-old taquito from 7-Eleven?
Negative.
What's the most number of hours you've watched TV in a single day?
8.
Do you Instagram your food?
Actually, I don't have any social media.
There you go. Would you rather have friends taller than 6'4" or shorter than 5 foot?
Play ball, so a lot of guys I hoop with are actually taller than 6'4". So
If there's a spider in your house, do you kill it or set it free?
I get the hell out the house. I don't do
Burn the house
spiders
down?
or snakes.
Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Dark.
Say something cool.
What's happening?
Thank you so much.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. I am Buckle Up Bob.
Double check Dale. Let's just go with that.
All right. And, of course, the ever-esteemed producer who is in charge of everything. Great videos this morning. I was actually looking through a lot of those topics. I'm sorry, videos, but topics you were talking about. There was just some phenomenal things on the internet this morning. Now I'm like, holy cow. But, hey, we are talking about brakes, right? Truck brakes. Last week we talked into a lot of the federal motor carrier rules, what causes some of the failures, some of the leading causes. This week we're going to talk about our BCB data, the BCBs of safety, right? And these are things we've got to turn around and we've got to correct. And when you hear the numbers, you're going to see it's very easily to do. And man, talk about being the best carrier in the nation. These topics we're talking about this week will allow us to do that. This will make us the best when it comes to CSA and vehicle maintenance. Vehicle maintenance is the worst category for every carrier out there. And when you stop and think about it, it's because some people talk about aging equipment, right? But it really comes down to improper pre-trip inspections or finding something and just flat ignoring it because you don't want to take the time or lose the time to get it repaired. And that's just got to stop, right? And you're going to see. Yesterday I had an error, but I got it corrected today. But we have had a total of 149 violations over in vehicle maintenance since we started, right? And 57 of them are brake related, all right? And that equates to 38%. Over a third of our CSA points, and actually I'm going to say it's even bigger than that. I'll get the points, try to do that for a later date. But when you stop and think that brakes and tires are the highest point accumulators out there in the violations compared to all other violations, then that, I guarantee you, 38% of the violations being brakes probably equates to close to 70% of the points that we get on our CSA score. So again, what we added today, and again, this happens, also adds the points. We've had 37 out-of-service violations. Why is that important? Well, it's important for several reasons. Productivity on your part, right? If you're placed out of service, you don't get to move. So you lose that time. Second of all, this is what insurance uses to use on their rates when they hit BCB or any carrier, right? They're looking at them out of service because that means a driver failed to do a proper pre-trip. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you're placed out of service, you're ignoring or not even looking at the brake problem. So today added, out of them 37 out-of-service violations, 12 are brake-related, right? That's 32%. Again, almost a third of our out-of-service violations alone are brake-related. So you can see the importance of Brake Safety Week. You can see the importance that it's just got to be zero tolerance for anybody to drop equipment with bad brakes, for anybody to take equipment out on the roadway with bad brakes. Again, we're going to have some more numbers that are just going to stagger, and you're going to see how quick we can turn this around if we take care of two of the most important items on vehicle maintenance. And of course, brakes are number one. Just the brakes, we're we eliminate our out of service violations by a third, and probably close to 3/4 of our points violations if we just take care of the brakes. And that comes from a lot of things. That comes from taking trailers out that don't have an inspection done, right? That is a quick way for lawyers to get a hold of neglect on the company side. And that's not just driver error. That's in this office. We have processes that we must follow to not allow equipment to be on the highway that isn't inspected. All right? So again, yes, it's a little bit of a firm message this morning, but I just got to tell you, it's got to stop. You have to take it serious. You have to believe that what you're doing out there matters and can cause lives. And it can. Everything you do, and in this office as well. So again, we have got to get better control of our vehicle maintenance, and we've got to keep them out of service. What happens when you get out of service? Every violation is given a severity code, 1 through 10. Typically, brakes are always going to be somewhere in that 8 to 10 range. When you're placed out of service, they will add 2 more severity points to you. So that 10 could be a 12. The 8 becomes a 10. And then the time weight, of course, is always 3. So you're looking at 36 points for 1 brake violation, compared to a light that might cost you 3 times 3 is 9, right? Yep. So you're looking at almost 3.5 times the point value, that you get just on 1 brake compared to a light out. So folks, you have to look at the brakes. You have to understand how they work. You have to understand how to inspect and check if your brakes are out. And then above all, you got to put into action and go get them repaired. Even if it's a question mark, send them Macro 39 and let's stop by a garage and just have them checked. And if they're out, great, we get them repaired right then and there. Hey, but we are at 91 days without a DOT reportable, preventable, or any kind of accident. Again, right now they're in line with each other, and then we have made it to 6 without a backing. Get out and look. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some weather. Right. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to do a little bit of weather, and you can see Fred, the eye is right over Atlanta, so to speak, if there is such a thing. It has been downgraded to a tropical depression. But what the big concern here is the flooding. All right. So if they're concerned about flooding, we've got to watch getting off of secondary highways, right? Most of the time, this will not affect the interstates. But what will affect the interstates in this rain is ponding. Remember, your speed has to come down during these heavy storms. Right? That if you're driving through that area in Atlanta, you've got to slow it down by 15, 20 miles an hour. Remember, hydroplaning really gets more likely at 40 miles an hour or higher. So once you start hitting 40, you are in the risk of hydroplaning, depending on your weight, of course. Trucks can get through a little bit more, but we need that speed down 15 to 20 miles an hour if you're going through the heavy rainstorms. You can see a little bit showers out here in West Texas, in the Midland area maybe. And then again, up in eastern Oklahoma, going up Missouri along the I-44 in Tulsa, and then down here right along the Red River and Arkansas border. And a few scattered showers up in New York. As we go through the day, there you can see Fred and the threat of severe weather. There are some tornado warnings out in this area also till 1 this afternoon. So folks, if you're driving in an area, you've got to watch the winds. And we'll show the winds here a little bit later. But be mindful that, hey, these storms usually and can produce tornadoes in that area. So that whole northern Georgia, even in the northern corner of South Carolina, moving into North Carolina, the southern part of North Carolina, you got to be on the lookout for that. Texas today, as the day goes by, we are under a heavy rain advisory. There are going to be some storms that are going to pop up, and they are expected to dump a lot of rain in a short time. So again, flash flooding, ponding. If you're in the Texas, as the day goes, these storms chances increase through the evening. So we are expected a rainy day this afternoon, mostly here in the Dallas area. And you can see most of Texas has the chance of some thunderstorms later this afternoon at 2 p.m. And my guess is, there you go, almost the entire state by 8. So between that 2 and 8 p.m. should be the highest activity for some storms. As our winds forecasted. Oh, except we're still on rain. There you go. So you can kind of see what them winds are going to expected to do here. 34 in Atlanta, and then as you can see, as we went later in the afternoon, it gets even darker and the winds get stronger the farther they move north. So we're going to be looking in that low 40s, upper 30 gusts, and that's at 5. And then I think it was at 8 we saw the purple starts to hit up right there on the tri-state. 50-mile-an-hour gusts potential. Again, so you've got the tornado threat and the potential for some very strong winds. Tomorrow morning, you can see it moves up, still windy up in northern North Carolina, starting to move along that I-81 corridor that comes right out of Tennessee on up in through Virginia. And as our rain chances also move up there with it, as you can see back in Texas tomorrow early morning hours. Then some will linger tomorrow, but we should start to dry out tomorrow afternoon in the Dallas area. So Fred has weakened, but here's Grace. And Grace is expected to come through. Let's see. Let's look at the winds. There you go. So Grace is expected to come through. See if it'll pop up here. It was Tamarico, Mexico. Somewhere in here is Tamarico. It is right now forecasted to really miss the United States. So again, Mexico, it looks like it is expected to strengthen into hurricane force. With Category 1, it's supposed to be in the mid to upper 70-mile-an-hour winds sustained, and that is supposed to hit sometime around Friday. The storm surge to start hitting the coast of Mexico on Friday. And then we've got Henri. They have named it. It was number 8 yesterday or whatever I called it they had on there. This is right in Bermuda, and it is expected to make a little hook clockwise and go back out. It's going to get close to landfall, but not come ashore. They're expecting 65-mile-an-hour winds from this one. So the whole Carolinas, the coastline should see some 7-foot waves and about 1 inch of rain. So there could be some heavy rain at time along the coast. But this one's not supposed to hit landfall. It's just supposed to make a little hook, clockwise hook. But again, 65-mile-an-hour winds expected with this one as it strengthens also. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some videos.
This is Drive Safe Dave here. Going to do another safety show about get out and look. Ben Turner's hooking up, and he's going to reposition the trailer into a new spot. He's going to demonstrate in the rain what it means to get out and look. Here we are outside getting wet, but you know what? It does not deter Ben of doing the right thing by getting out of the trailer and walking back and making sure it is safe back there before he backs up into the spot. He checks all the way around the trailer and then comes back and gets in the truck. Notice the lights are flashing. He blows the horn and starts the process of getting back into the spot. Here he is concluding it. Flasher's still going, making sure that he's visible and everybody knows what's going on. But you know what? Another reason this is successful is because he chose to get out and look the BCB way. Thanks, everybody, and have a great and safe day.
Hey, welcome back. And it is time for Video Dale.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Let's roll on, Mr. Producer. There we go. You know, this video starts out good. Starts out really good. We know we got great following distance or speed. We're running about 70 miles an hour, but here's where it changes. We jump out to make a pass, and we're pretty close behind. Actually, we're not pretty close. We're too close behind her. We're tailgating. If we're going 70 miles an hour here, we're too close to this vehicle in front of us. And we should have 6-7 seconds at 70 miles an hour. And we're behind him for about 4 seconds. The distance never really increases for those 4 seconds. And so, like I said, it's not a point where we're building distance here. We're just tailgating. We're too close behind them. You know, allow that distance on that pass. Make sure we have plenty of following distance. Starts out great, just doesn't end up quite the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's a big picture. You know, again, speed is good. We got a bus coming up. You know, our driver's watching what's going on. We have a bus stopped over in the right-hand lane and decides to pull out, you know, to make that pass around them. But once again,
we get too close to the vehicle in front of us, and as you can see, that vehicle in the other lane is already braking, and as this vehicle goes past, he's already braking, and we're still pulling out right behind him as they're braking. And so a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of decisions to make, not necessarily any real bad ones, but we've got to allow for that following distance, even, when we pull out to pass, and make sure that there's adequate room for them.
Yeah, and the side mirror does look like there's nobody there, but great point here. Patience, we talk a lot. Patience is key out there on the roadway to preventing accidents. I see it more and more prevalent where, you ask yourself, why am I changing lanes here? Because I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only reason. I don't want to stop behind that bus while it loads or unloads, right? And that's just patience.
Yeah. And we end up stopping anyway because the
Yes.
traffic comes to a complete stop, and so we're at the same place we'd have been if we'd have stayed in our lane. Great point, Bob. Here's situational awareness, big picture. You're coming up with this video, a lot going on, and as our driver's pulling up, I see the Costco trucks pulled over to the side with the four-way flashers on, and originally, if we go back through it, the tanker's pulling out, really can't see what goes on. Here you go, you've got the tanker pulling out in front of you, you got the truck pulled over, flashers on. Now you take a look, there's a vehicle across our lane. Didn't make the corner.
A truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, flatbed, it looks like, has
make
got
the
himself
corner.
wedged.
And so now we're kind of in a situation where, okay, where are we going to go? I don't know if there's a lot the driver could have done different here. It just goes to that situational awareness. The flatbed truck, let's talk a little bit about that. He didn't have very good situational awareness when he made that corner. I don't know if he got distracted. Big corner. So, I mean, you just got a lot of stuff going on. Interesting video.
Yeah, and last night, hey, just as a quick reminder, this intersection reminds me, Heritage Parkway. We do not make the right turn on 287 to come here. You go either straight to 2nd Avenue and then make the right and come up the back way, or the best bet is go down to Lone Star, get on there, and then get on 287, and that way you'll come straight through there. I watched it last night. I went that way. I had something to do, and I went that way, and I watched the semi do that, and everybody had to back up, and I had left about 20 feet so that cars could back up because I knew the situation. But, I mean, I wish they'd put a sign that says no right turn for trucks because of the fact they've taken the turn lane away while they repair that highway. So just a reminder, everybody, we do not want you using that, making that right turn there.
This video here just reminded me of the one that we watched a couple of weeks ago where that car stopped in traffic. The state does a great job of saying road work ahead, convoy ahead, but then they use traffic to stop the other lane. I mean, I don't understand. Our driver does a great job. It's just a great video to look at conversation and think about stuff. But we're using traffic. What if this is a car that's stopped out in this lane to protect the road workers, and somebody else in a big truck isn't paying attention? So in a situation like this, I hope our driver kept his foot on the brake to keep the brake lights activated. Maybe throw the four-way flashers on, because we're definitely sitting there. These guys are taking their time, putting the patch on the road. And so there's just a lot going on, protect lives. Our driver does a great job getting stopped and making sure that the road workers ahead of them are safe. But, I just almost want to talk to the state and say, hey, there's a better way of doing this. I mean, if you're going to block traffic and road work ahead, block the lane that they're working in, not the other one, and let traffic or make traffic do it.
Yeah.
Our driver, we didn't capture anything. Our driver called yesterday and said, hey, you might want to take a look at a hard brake because I think I just had one. Well, he didn't, and so he's got his own Garmin video camera, so he sent it in. He says, hey, I'm not real sure what else I could have done here, or was this the 100% rightest thing? You can see when the video starts, he sees the car coming on. We're running about 70 at that point, and he immediately starts to slow down. It's going to be courteous, let this car come out. Lo and behold, what does the car do? Slows down with him. The more he slows down, the more the car slows down. Then at the very end, the car decides, the driver's waiting for us. And so, the driver said, was there anything I could have done different? He said, traffic was moderately heavy along the side of me. I knew I had a big truck behind me, so I didn't really want to slow down a whole lot more. So he just sent it in and said, hey, did I do the right thing? Is this the 100% right thing? What could I have done better?
Yeah, and it's great conversation. I would have to see the rate of the speed drop and when it started. I know you said immediately, but one thing to remember is we got merge points, and there's always this threat. So if we're doing 70, then my guess was we probably should have needed to knock it down to 60 as we approach the merge point in case somebody comes on. Again, if nobody comes on, then we can just kick it right back up to the speed limit. But if, like, we see that car way back here,
Yeah.
So we know that car is coming on, and it doesn't look like we're really slowing down.
Well, he's at 64 right there, and
Yeah.
now he's down to 60. And so they said, speed limit was 70 or 75. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, good
You know,
point.
that's really, again, and we're nitpicking, okay?
Yes.
We're talking about how do you avoid the close call, right? And the only way is, hey, we've seen him way back up there. You know he's coming on. Maybe if we start dropping there, maybe we're at 50, 55. The other thing is, and yeah, I've seen it before where I've done it, where I thought I slowed down quick enough to let them know that I was going. Maybe we flashed our lights to let them know that we're going to let them in, or whatever the case it is. But you got to do something to let them know because, yeah, as you've seen, then he's slowed down as well.
Yeah.
But yes, great job by our driver. I mean, and appreciate you taking the ownership, calling in and asking, hey, what more could we have done?
Oh, yeah, and then showing the video. We didn't have the video of it, so he sends his own video, and I think that's just great because, like you said, he wanted the conversation and see what other drivers thought.
Awesome.
Because, like you said, we've all had it happen to us. When we
Yes.
slow down, think they're going to come out, and then they just start pacing us. So great video. Thanks for sharing.
All right. Was there any more videos?
No.
All right. Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we have our special guest in the studio to talk about Brake Safety Week coming up and some of the things that he's seen over the years, that insight that he can give you. We'll kind of go over some of our CSA numbers that we've got so he can maybe speak into that and how it relates to what you all can do out there. So we'll be right back.
Hello? Drive safe, Dave. Uh-huh. No, I'm working on it. I'm on the other line with the vendor right now. Yeah, I should know something shortly. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I'll tell you what, I'll call you right back when I get off the phone with them. Perfect. Jeez. Uh-huh. Yes. Oh, I'm sure it's a real problem. Uh-huh. No. I'll tell you what. Let me call the shop and I'll get right on this. And if you'll give me just a few minutes, I'll get right back to you. I'll call you right back. Okay? Absolutely. All right. Be safe out there. That gets them.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Many of you may or may not have met Mr. Kenny Ray, but he works for our insurance company, and he has been an invaluable source to me. We talk a lot each week, and just to kind of go over some interpretation of the rules, do I have the right context of what the rule was designed for? Because we do know that nothing's really official on some of these rules yet. That's not in the book. So we talk a lot about it. But this week, really wanted to get his insight and help you all maybe how to check, what they're looking for, just to kind of go over our brake numbers. So some of the things, Kenny, that I've shared with the group this week that we're starting is our CSA numbers. And right now, we have 149 vehicle violations, and 57 of those were brake-related, which is 38% of our violations. And like I showed them, though that's 38% of our total violations, it probably represents closer to 75% of our points because brakes and tires are two of the highest point accumulators of violations that are out there. So probably in likelihood, we're probably double that in our points. So it's real easy to how we can affect our CSA score just by taking care of brakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we do know we got the Brake Safety Week coming up this weekend. Many of them start, it says Sunday, but we know they're going to start Friday or Saturday. They always do. They use the entire weekend. In fact, yesterday we had a level 1 in West Memphis where they said brakes. Going to check the brakes. We passed it with a level 1. So great job by that driver. That's a start that how we can, one of the things here, if we take care and we come out of this with 10, 11 inspections all clean, we're going to really gain in our CSA score in vehicle maintenance because I guarantee you other carriers aren't going to be so lucky in our group, and we're going to be able to make a huge jump in there.
Right.
What are some of the things, you're an ex-DOT officer,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
DPS. What are some of your experiences and things, advice that you can give our drivers?
Well, first of all, Bob, let's talk for just a second about Brake Safety Week. It is one of 3 primary focus of the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, or CVSA. We had Road Check back in May. Mm-hmm. We had Operation Safe Driver Week last month in July. And this time is Brake Safety Week. What Brake Safety Week will be doing, and you mentioned it starts Sunday. Technically, it starts Sunday at midnight, Saturday night going into Sunday morning, and it runs a full week. till next Saturday, okay? And what'll happen is troopers and MCSAP officers across the U.S. and across Canada will be doing level 1 inspections primarily. And on a side note, we're up to 7 different types of inspections now. When I first started back in the late 80s, we were doing 3. We had a level 1, level 2, and a level 3, and now we're up to 7. The difference, and this is one reason I wanted to talk for a second about Brake Safety Week and its structure, is that because it's a dedicated focus, they will be, and when I say they, enforcement officers will be doing what they've been told. And what they've been told is they'll actually write tickets for more serious violations. So you're going to get roadside inspections, you're going to get CSA points, but they're also going to be filing charges with the local magistrate. So there'll be fines associated with that as well. Plus, when they place a vehicle out of service, there's none of this wink, wink, brother-in-law stuff. Well, I'll let you go on to your destination and then get it fixed. They're going to put red tags on vehicles. They're going to park them right there on the side of the road in the scale strip, wherever they are. And a driver then, think about the expense and the time that comes with being out of service. Because if they're not letting you proceed to the next place where you can get repairs, then you've either got to pay for road maintenance, road service to come out to the scale strip and fix the truck, or you got to call a wrecker and have it towed to a shop. And either one of those is accruing expense on top of the fine, on top of the CSA points, on top of everything else. And then the biggest thing, and you know this being in the trucking business, and drivers do too, one of the greatest expenses for a truck driver is time. And so if they place a truck out of service and he's there 2 or 3 hours waiting on road service to get out there, fix the truck, and then he gets back on the road, well, he's already lost 2 or 3 hours of time, which is money.
Yeah, minimal. Minimal.
Absolutely.
2 to 3.
Absolutely. So a legitimate question. So it starts Sunday night and runs through next Saturday. A legitimate question may be, why brakes? Why do we carve out one entire week of the year to focus on one component of a truck? And the reason is because they're looking at stats from the past. 38% of all the vehicles that were stopped during road check that were placed out of service because of brakes. That's over a third, okay? 8 of the 20 top violations in the safety management system, SMS, are brake related. And then 12% of the vehicles, think about that, this is really important. It's not a gigantic stat, but 12% of the vehicles that were checked last year during Brake Safety Week were placed out of service. And you may sit and say, well, that's 12%, that's not that many. It is when you consider that they publicize this event all year long. People know it's coming.
Yeah.
And we still have 12 out of every 100 trucks. Just think of it like this. Don't think about percentage. 12 out of every 100 trucks that pulls into the scales gets a red tag and gets parked. And that's why they're focusing on brakes. Now, this year, within the brake world, they always pick one particular component that they really focus on. And this year, it's air hoses and tubing. They're going to be looking for violations. So they're looking for things like air hoses that are chafing or rubbing against anything else. And this is something drivers can, during their pre-trip and post-trip inspections, look. Are your air lines rubbing up against anything? Just mere contact in and of itself is a violation.
Yes.
Can't be touching anything, okay? Then, if it is actually touching, we've got to look at the extent of any damage that has been incurred on that brake hose. And some things rise to the level of being out of service. If it goes through the outer reinforcement ply, now a lot of airlines have got a braided line on the outside that's simply for protection, but it's not pressure sensitive. But the rest of the line is designed to hold pressure. And if any part of that outer reinforcement ply has been worn away, is reduced in diameter, it's a violation. In fact, it's an out of service violation. If a hose bulges or swells when pressure is applied to it, like a water balloon,
Right.
absolutely out of service. Audible air leak anywhere than a standard or proper connection. Now, an air leak anywhere is a violation.
Right.
But if it's at a proper connection, then the rationale is we're not going to place that out of service because you can either take a wrench and tighten that if it's a fitting, Or if it's like at a glad hand, you can put a new rubber seal in it and stop that air leak. But if it's leaking anywhere other than at a connection, then it means that the hose is either going to have to be replaced or repaired, which comes to the last thing that we've seen a lot are improper splices, where there's been a defective hose and a driver or a mechanic, somebody took and instead of replacing the line, they cut it and they spliced it. And when you ask what I've personally seen, the worst one I've ever seen was a guy took a Bic ink pen, like you're writing with right there, took the guts out of the pen and took the plastic barrel, stuck that into the airline and put 2 hose clamps on it. And that's an improper splice.
Right.
And it's out of service. Even if that's holding pressure, that's an improper splice and it's out of service.
What is the definition of is there a legal splice?
Yeah.
I've seen people do it, and I know it can be done.
Yeah, mechanics, hose repair shops that actually know how to crimp the hose and put a proper fitting in. Those are acceptable because then that becomes a connection.
Right.
It's okay.
Hose clamps are not allowed.
Oh, no. It's these homemade deals that get us in trouble. Those are the things that. Now, there's some other things that are common violations that we see. First of all, officers will always look. If they find defective brakes, they add up the total number of brakes. And if it exceeds 20% or more, that puts the vehicle out of service. So we take a 5-axle rig, what most people would call an 18-wheeler, tractor semi-trailer, got 5 axles. That means it's got 10 brakes. So 2 or more brakes defective, the rig's out of service.
Gotcha.
Then there are some violations simply on the steering axle that will put the tractor out of service regardless of whether it meets the 20% or not. So talking about what makes a defective brake, lots of things. Number one, if the push rod travels wrong. The push rods are traveling too far. If it has missing or broken components, that's something that's either just gone or it's not attached right or something's broke underneath on the brake system. When you look at the linings on the shoes or the pads, depending if you've got drum brakes or disc brakes, the thickness, got to have a 1/4 inch pad on a traditional brake drum shoe. Got to have a 1/16 of an inch on disc pads. Look for cracks in either the braking surface, the lining or the pad, or the drum, the rotor, any part of it that's cracked due to heat. Now on disc brakes, they'll look at the rotor itself and see, of all things, is the rotor rusted? Because think about this. When a disc brake is applied and that caliper closes, those disc brake pads are against that rotor and you've got friction there. So that ought to be worn smooth. So if it's got rust on it, it indicates that there is no contact going on there. So just by the fact that it's rusted tells the officer that the brake is not working. A common one we see is if you've got a leaking wheel seal and you get grease or oil on the braking surface where it's saturated on the surface, that oil acts like a lubricant just like it does for that wheel bearing. So if there's oil on the brakes and they're not working, that'll count as part of the 20% out of service. And then there's some things that really don't even have anything to do with the components under the truck or the trailer, but it has to do with performance. And those are primarily, the tests for those are primarily conducted in the cab of the truck. And so what the trooper, the officer will do is they'll have the driver build the air up on the tractor. And they'll get it at least above 90 PSI, or it'll get to the point where the compressor cut out on the compressor. And then at that point, he'll have him turn the tractor off, release all the brakes, and simply apply the foot brake. And the trooper will just walk around the truck listening for air leaks, audible air leaks, okay? And then if he finds an audible air leak, he'll have the driver start the truck back up, release the park brake, mash on the foot brake to see if the air pressure drops, because what that'll tell him is he's already found the air leak. So think about this. We know we're losing pressure because there's an air leak somewhere on the truck or trailer. He found that when he did his walk around. Now he wants to see, can the compressor keep up with the amount of air that's being lost? So he'll have him release all the park brakes, mash on the foot brake while the truck is idling. And now initially when he mashes on the foot brake, the air gauge is going to drop just a little bit because he initially applies. But then if it continues to drop, that tells the officer This air leak is so bad the compressor can't even keep up with it, even when the compressor's operating. That's an automatic out of service.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We talked about that last Wednesday. Wednesdays, we are now doing FMCSA Wednesday, where we take a 30-minute, and we're just going to take some rules. And with Brake Safety Week, we did that. Now, the Federal Motor Carrier says, I believe it's 2 PSI in a second, then you've got a major brake failure or leak that it can't keep up. Is that?
Yeah, but the main thing, though, that the officer will just step up on the step of the tractor, and he or she will watch that gauge.
Right.
And if the gauge drops, I mean, you don't even have to know anything about pneumatics or air pressure or anything else. That simply tells you that what's going into the system, i.e. what's coming out of the compressor, is not able to keep up with what's going out of the system.
That's true.
So the gauge dropping is just an indication that the air leak is so serious the compressor can't keep up.
That's right. 2 PSI, it's not going to hardly move. So if it's going faster, it's going to drop.
And I've literally seen them drop.
Just keep.
Oh, it's unreal. Now, there's two other things they're going to check while they're up there. They'll have the driver start pumping his brakes down, and when it gets to 55 PSI or 1/2 of the compressor cutoff, whichever is less, the low air warning device has to come on, light or audible signal, whichever one you have. So they'll check that. And then they'll have him pump it on down. And when it gets to 20 PSI or lower, the pop-out valve or the tractor protection valve ought to automatically pop out. So those are the primary things that they're going to look for during a roadside inspection.
Oh, that's great stuff. I mean, I didn't know anything about the pop-out and all that on the inspection as well. Did you have anything else before we open up some questions?
A couple of things. You mentioned about y'all CSA scores. And first of all, everybody that knows anything about BCB knows that y'all are a safe motor carrier. And I can't say that about everybody. Y'all don't have any CSA in alert at all. The one that is probably causes you the most headache, and I'm sure for Rick and Dave as well, is that vehicle maintenance score is a little elevated, and I want y'all are wanting to get that down. And you already mentioned that almost 40%, 38% of your violations are related to brakes.
Yes.
So one thing I want to encourage drivers and mechanics, the mechanics that work for y'all's drivers, to do is take this week to get ready for Brake Safety Week, knowing that also is contributing to lowering the CSA score that is most problematic for you.
Yeah, and that's true with any carrier. Their vehicle maintenance is the big, that's what we were talking a little bit this morning. It's like, yes, there's things we can do on inspections and stuff, but that really comes to drivers not pre-tripping their equipment good enough. I mean, that really is it, because before you take it on the road, you're either seeing the problem and you're ignoring it, or you're not even looking.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've got to look. If the officer's just walking around listening for air leak, you sure can too.
Yeah. And Bob, I want to share with you one other thing.
Yes.
There's kind of a running joke, and I happen not to think it's funny, but there's kind of a running joke among some owner-operators that anytime that the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is holding one of these dedicated weeks, they joke that I'm going to take vacation that week.
Right.
The implication is my truck won't pass, and rather than fix it, I'm just not going to be subject to an inspection. But I want to encourage drivers to roll into those scales confident. My truck and trailer is going to pass because I know it's in good shape. And I'll tell you one thing encouraging for BCB, even though this coming week is a dedicated focus on inspections, and there'll be almost 50,000 roadside inspections conducted next week. You think in the U.S. and Canada, there'll be almost 50,000 trucks and trailers that are looked at. But BCB's ISS score, and I don't know if you've ever shared that with your drivers or not, but that's the score that whenever a truck and a trailer rolls into the scales, the trooper either manually enters the U.S. DOT number into the computer, or the more sophisticated states, and Texas has 6 of these now, has a U.S. DOT number reader. It's a camera mounted on a pole. And when the tractor rolls into the scales, this camera actually automatically reads the US DOT number, and it sends it to the scale house. And if they're going to do an inspection, it auto-populates all, for instance, BCB's information would auto-populate off of reading that US DOT number. What the ISS score is a 3-level color code for the troopers to tell them whether or not they have to inspect this truck, it's optional to inspect this truck, or they're supposed to let it go. And that number is on a scale of 0 to 100. 50 and below, it's like golf. The lower the score, the better. 50 and below is green, and unless the trooper just observes a noticeable visual violation, they're supposed to put the truck right back on the road. If it's orange or yellow, that's 50 to 75, it's optional. The trooper can or cannot, at his or her discretion, do the inspection. And if it's above 75 to 100, it's red, and they're supposed to inspect it no matter what. BCB is green.
Yes, we are.
Y'all are below 50.
Yes.
So even though the lights are going to probably be on at all the scale houses for this coming week, probably 24 hours a day, more than likely, as soon as that USDOT number is red, the BCB driver is going to get the green light and right back on the interstate.
You know, and that brings up another thing questions we've had in the past, and I'd love to have your input on this. You know, drivers have always asked, hey, my in-cab says I'm good, but the thing says come on in. And it's best to just go in and make sure, because you don't want that officer to have to come after you. Because it has happened where the in-cab signal said you're good to go ahead and pass it, and the officers chased them down.
Yeah.
Is it good to just pull in there? And because if you are passing through, they're going to let you pass through anyway. Right?
And you're talking about like on pre-pass?
Yes.
Is that the system y'all use?
Yes, we use pre-pass and some K-tag in Kansas City.
Okay. Yeah, and what I've heard drivers say is that they got the signal that they were supposed to go on, but there was something about it. The drivers have even said something about the signal was different. And it wasn't like they got a good, clear signal. Now, if you get a good, solid, clear go on, then the scale's telling you you're free to go on. And I've actually seen very few of those guys get chased down. It's where that pre-pass is telling them you've got to enter the scale, and the driver happened to be over in the inside lane, and there was a four-wheeler blocking them from getting to the scale location, and they just took a chance and went home. Or they got that funky signal that kind of drivers have described it to me as being weak.
Weak
the
signal?
Weak. Those you probably ought to pull on in.
Ought to pull in.
But again, with y'all's great ISS score, y'all drivers are going to get put right back on the road.
Awesome.
Right back on the road.
Who we got, producer?
Yeah, we got two here. So the first is a question from Brian Winsauer. So he is saying, is it true that if either of the airlines or the pigtails between the tractor and trailer are touching the catwalk, it is an automatic violation?
Yes, Brian, that's a great question. The answer to that's yes. And I'll use trucker terminology. Everybody knows what a pogo stick is, that's mounted on the catwalk and it's got springs on it. Both the airlines and the electrical lines have to be suspended above the catwalk. And think about this, and I know you've got common sense being a BCB driver. That catwalk is made out of corrugated metal. And so if those lines are rubbing on that, it's not going to take long. Even just going down an interstate highway in a straight line with that tractor bouncing and moving, if those lines are rubbing against that catwalk, it's not going to be long before you're into the ply. And not only is it a violation, then you get into the out of service as well.
Yeah, and before you tell Brian he's an intelligent kind of driver because he drives BCB, he is a Cub fan, so we're not sure on the intelligence level yet with Mr. Winsauer. Who else we got, producer?
All right, we got two callers here. So Jeff Marsh and then Leroy Reed. So what do you got for us, Jeff?
Mr. Marsh.
Good morning, Mr. Kenny Ray. Glad that you can join us today.
Thank you.
What Bob was talking about, I'm gonna give you an example.
Okay.
Is what I'm trying to say. So when you go into Louisiana from Texas, they've got the weigh in motion and they got the pre-pass.
Yep.
So if you go across that pre-pass and it gives you a green light, and but the weigh in motion says you got to come in and scale. That's what they're talking about. So you got two different objects that are telling you two different things. And I've had it actually sometimes where my pre-pass gave me a red light, but the weighing motion told me to bypass the scale. So that's pretty much what we're trying to figure out what we need to do now.
Let me respond to that, and then if you've got another question, we'll take it. First of all, I'm tickled to death that you brought up the state of Louisiana because I'm going to share something about the way they do things over there in their legal system that is very, very difficult for drivers to comply with. But in the situation you described, you're dealing with two different systems. The pre-pass is set up for roadside inspections. The weigh in motion is set up to determine overweight violations. And so those systems operate independently of each other. So if either one of those gives you the red light, you have to honor that. So if what you want is two greens, you want pre-pass and weigh in motion to say you're good to go and hammer down, go on and do your thing. But if either one of them give you a red, you need to pull into the scale. Now, here's why I'm tickled to death you brought up Louisiana. And unless a driver has dealt with particularly a ticket over there, where I'm talking about they've actually assigned a legal violation against the driver, not just a roadside inspection, but the same would hold true for Bob dealing with roadside inspection in Louisiana. They require, unlike Texas, Texas has 254 counties, and we've got judges in every county. And if you get a ticket in Texas, you deal with that local judge in the county that you got a ticket from. It's not handled at the state level. Louisiana's different. All of their parishes, whenever an officer writes a traffic ticket in the state of Louisiana, the only way to contest that ticket is you have to file a notice, and then you must personally appear in Baton Rouge, which is the state capital, and you go before a 3-member civilian board and you basically plead your case. And so they make it so where it is such a hassle. They make it where it is so difficult to exercise your rights of trying to appeal a violation that most drivers just fold and say, okay, I'll just send my money to Baton Rouge, and that's what they like. Even for Bob to data queue a violation and try to get it off the BCB's profile, they still want you to first appear before that board in Baton Rouge. So I used to be a safety director at a company. We had 5 terminals in Louisiana. We dealt with them all the time. And it is a very, very egregious process over there. So, but again, back to your original question, if you get red light on pre-pass, red light on weigh in motion, either one pull into the scales.
Must have 2 greens.
Yep.
All right, we got time for one more question here. Leroy Reed, what do you got for us, sir? Hey, Cowboy, what do you got? It's Leroy Reed.
Cowboy.
All right, John Lackey, do you have a question for us, sir?
Hey, John. Good morning.
Mr. John Lackey.
Okay. Anybody else?
All right, Leroy, you want to try again for us real quick?
Cowboy, you able to do it? All right. Hey, everybody. Hey, if you got questions, keep it up. We're going to try to get where we get Kenny Ray in here more often to answer your questions. Maybe on our Wednesday FMCSA, I think it would be a great segment for him to sit in with me as we explain it, to make sure that you get exactly, you know, what the rules are intended to do. So great conversation this morning. Folks, we have a golden opportunity to live what we claim as being the safest fleet out there on the highway. This Brake Safety Week shouldn't scare us. We should just do our jobs really well. And if there's any question, if you're not 100% sure, we just pull into a garage. I know many of the truck stops will do free brake checks coming up so that we can be compliant. But do not ignore them, and let's have a great week. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, Sandy, I'm starving. What's for lunch today?
Well, unfortunately, nothing that I have cooked. Because of COVID,
no.
I'm not cooking anymore. But what I do have is a freezer full of food for the drivers. We have breakfast food. We have Stouffer's lasagna. We have meatloaf. All the driver has to do is walk in, open the freezer, and make them a little something to eat.
Good morning. Just want to quickly remind everyone, be watching your CDL and looking for those expiration dates. Your birthday may be 3-4 months down the road, but it sneaks up on us really fast, as we all know. So go ahead and be looking at that. Get it scheduled. That way you don't have any problems. You don't risk being shut down due to an expired CDL. Today we've got 2 birthdays. The first is for Bill Fuse, and the second is for Nicholas Taducci. Happy birthday to both of you. And then we also have quite a list of our New England guys that have now been with us for a year. So welcome back to some of you, and we really appreciate you sticking with BCB and doing everything that you can for us. Watch, and you will see all of those names here. Everyone, please keep wearing your mask, wash your hands, use that antibacterial. Have a good day.